What's up, guys? Today we're ripping the turbo out of the Volvo. Now, I may be shooting this intro just a little late, but I'll go over everything with you that I found on it at the end of the video. Now, this is going to be not a step-by-step, but a lot better of a tutorial than what I have seen on YouTube. I've had to ask forums for numerous things on help when I pulled it out the first time. This second time I pulled it out, it was like butter. So keep watching. I'll show you some time lapses of everything, and then I'll show you step by step on what I found difficult and what you'll probably run into as a challenge as well.
When you feel it's hopeless, when you think that you lost, oh, I will take your hand and we'll rise up from the dust. Oh, here we go, 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 let us heal and grow. You won't be alone, we're unstoppable. Don't be afraid to show what we're going for. This is what we know. Here we come back to life, we're still breathing. Standing up, everybody's gonna see it. Oh, all you need to know is that we're holding on. Even if we fall, we will rise up and we follow the path that we believe in. No, we're not gonna stop until we reach it. Oh, all you need to know is that we're holding on. We rise up from the dust and claim our throne.
Alright guys, so we're looking at the top of the turbo here. So if you look, you can see this first line right here. That guy comes back into the coolant tank. So that is going to be your coolant there. Now that is going to be, if I remember correct, T56. So you're going to put it on there and then just crack that guy loose. It is going to leak a little bit. You can see I put a vice grip here to kind of clamp it off so it doesn't drain the whole coolant reservoir. Something I do commonly do is I'll throw a plastic bag on the end of it and I'll zip tie it so it stays tight. So if I'm on another car, it's not dripping on me. It's annoying. So the other thing you'll see down back there, if you see those two guys behind where the coolant comes in, there's two smaller Torx. Those guys are going to be a T25. So that's going to be for your feed for your oil on the top there. So taking those guys off, you're going to lose some oil there. Now that is going to be everything on the top there as far as your fluids go. Now, as far as when you're looking at other stuff, obviously you're going to want to take your downpipe or detach it from here. That guy and that guy there, I can't remember off the top of my head. I want to say it's a 10 mil, but I think it might be bigger than that. And there's a third one down under there. You can't really see it all that well, sorry. You can vaguely see it. But it is there. Get those three off. You may have to take off the oxygen sensor, which is going to be a 22. I did have to use or buy a 22 wrench for it, and it was still a pain in the neck to get it to break loose. I think this time around I'll probably do without taking it off, unless it gets absolutely in the way. Now, as far as stuff that's coming from your TCV controller, your turbo control valve, when you're going from that back here, you can kind of see I did take that off, and this actually comes from your PCV system, follows up and goes into there, into that. I took that off. You can see the blue vacuum hose goes down to the intake tube right there. And then you can see right in between where the blue wraps around, this guy here. So that one is gonna be for your PCV. That's where they're gonna be, where it basically vents gas off from the crankcase. Now you can see the wastegate there, which I've already taken the clamp off of that. That comes off. You'll take that one off as well. Under the intake tube itself, there is this red hose. So that goes to your turbo compressor. There's a little bung there that feeds into, and that's what feeds the valve itself and gives the computer a signal of what boost that you're reading. So it gives that a valve something to reference to actuate the wastegate. Now, as far as that goes, that's about everything you need to take apart on the top end. The rest of it is under it, and it gets cramped down there pretty quick. So there might be some shoddy camera work. I apologize about that in advance, but I'll show you some of that stuff. Yeah, so here we are under the car. So you could see on the bottom end, you can probably kind of tell which one's going to be the coolant return and the other one's going to be the oil return. But if you can't tell, so if you look here in the middle, you're going to see those two bolts. They look pretty familiar to the ones on top there. So those guys are going to be your oil return. Now, if you look to the right of that, there's going to be a big banjo bolt. And that one is going to be your coolant return. Sorry that everything looks all oily down here. That was part of the issue that we had, was that those guys, once everything warmed up and they were loose, everything expanded, but they needed to be tightened back down, so there's oil everywhere. So this is going to get washed out. So that's going to be your returns there. That's the most of what you need down here. Now you can see to the left here, there's this aluminum tube. That's your turbo feed line. So that wraps up around the turbo. So the hard thing is that coming around over here to the side, I apologize for this. See it right there. That's where it comes in, or it comes out of the engine to feed the turbo. So you need to take that off, and if I remember correct, that's a 10 mil. You need to get that off of there. There are two washers on it. There's a washer between the bolt and the line itself, and between the block and the line. If you take those apart, you definitely need to get replacements for those, because that's important. That was the other thing that I had a leaking issue once everything warmed up. So that had to be tightened down as well. You can take everything out through the top there. You actually don't even have to take, this is the angle gear here. You can see that's part of the housing over here as well. You can take the turbo out through the top and not have to take this off. That's actually what some of the manufacturers, or if you take it to a dealership, they take that out and then they take the turbo out from the bottom. There's no need to do that. And you don't need to jack up or loosen up the engine, jack it up and tilt it or anything. It comes out with a little bit of a struggle, but I'll show you guys later on once it's coming out on how to get it out of there without doing any of those extra steps. Now that I got everything out of the way, I'm gonna start by breaking loose everything up top here. And then earlier I did say there was a T56, I was way wrong. It is a T50. So at least it was on the 50 mark there. I'm gonna crack this guy open. You can see it's already starting to leak there. Again, it's gonna make a mess. Just rip the Band-Aid off and get it out. Basically getting all the coolant out of there. Most people will drain the coolant first. I'm just trying to minimize as much coolant that I need to put back in. Just, I guess, being lazy, not being lazy, I don't know. The other thing I did do is I just put a plastic bag on the end of this guy, I put a zip tie on it. Just so it, while I'm down there, if it happens to move, it doesn't leak on me. Just making it a little bit less miserable to work on. So here's the other thing. So we're gonna take a T30, put on those bolts, and crack those guys loose. You can hear it crack, and then get the other one there. Might need a different head for this one, but nope, there we go. So those guys are loose. So I'm gonna pull this off. This is gonna be your oil line. And once it's off, there is gonna be a gasket there. You can kind of see the tail end of the gasket over here. That gasket is brand new. I'm just gonna reuse it because I put it in on Sunday. As far as when you're putting a new one in, or when you're doing this yourself, make sure you get a new one. Last thing you want to do is have this leak or lose oil pressure to your turbo and, ruin it. And the next step I'm going to do is get that return loose right there and let it just finish draining out any residual coolant that's left in the system. Again, a smarter way would be to, just drain the coolant ahead of time. I'm gonna get this guy pulled out, and then the next step will be those other two over there. So there's one, the other one's back there. Those are a little tricky to get to. I'll show you how to get to them. Once I'm to that point, really the biggest issue is having the right socket and the right bit, and it not being too long in length to be able to get those guys loose. On to the next step, which is getting the oil return line bolts out. So there's the one, the other guy, it's a little harder to see back there. So what I have realized, if I set my wrench up somewhat similar to like this, what I can do is I can come around the other side of the angle gear here with my arm and get up here with it, and I'll be able to get in there and actually get the correct angle to break those guys loose. The one on the back is a little bit more challenging. It's nice if you have one that has a swivel head like so. Make your life a lot easier, because trying to get around the coolant hose or this here is just a nightmare. So I'm gonna get I'm gonna get all that stuff off, and then the next stop will basically unbolt the turbo from the downpipe and then unbolt it from the header. After that, pull it out. So on to the next step, which is gonna be basically taking the downpipe off. Again, you could take the oxygen sensor off. I would probably spray with PV blaster, same with these bolts. The first time I took these bolts off, I actually didn't do that. I just hit them with a breaker bar using a 10 mil. You're probably gonna need a various of extended like this guy, and a short stubby one, and an extension. I was able to get the two top ones off with a breaker bar up from the top like so. The bottom one I had to get from under to use the breaker bar just because there was so much tension on it. Now since mine, everything was put back together on Sunday, and then I need to basically take it back apart now. There's not very many heat cycles in it, so everything's probably not stuck like it was the first time around. If you're gonna send this out and have it rebuilt and you break one of these bolts, don't stress about it too much. They can go ahead and drill it out or re-tap it for you. That's not a big deal for the place you're doing it. Just tell them up front. Probably the next step after this is going to be taking the bolts out from the manifold. So there's two there. There's another one down there like so, which you can't see it because you have to access it from the back side of it. And same on the other side there. You can see the stud sticking through right there. Those, the one I'm showing right now is a pain in the neck to get to. You're gonna have to get a socket in there, and it's a 10 mil, and your hand's gonna cramp. You're gonna hate your life for probably about, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes getting that guy out of there. Once it's out, then I would recommend doing the other three. After that, you can pull the turbo. So you'll probably see me, I'll show you how to get that guy out next, and then we'll probably pull the turbo, because that'll be just about it. Yes. So I forgot to mention this guy here. I did mention it earlier, but I forgot to take it out. I haven't gotten too much farther after taking the downpipe off. So this guy here is going to be a 17 mil. You're going to need an extension on it, and probably a short stubby one. I mean, however you need to get to it. Again, it does have two washers on it, or basically banjo washer, crush washers on there. So that guy needs to come off so you can get this line that's right here off, so you can pivot it around the turbo to pull the turbo out. Without that, it's going to be a nightmare and a half trying to get the turbo out, and you won't, because that guy's pretty tight around the neck of the turbo. So I'm ready to remove the turbo. I got everything disconnected. I got all those bolts out. The one in that far corner that I was talking about, for some reason, was actually way easier to get out this time. I had maybe a little bit of experience, but the other thing is the stud didn't back out and the nut came off. So that's a little weird, but worked out in my advantage. So last thing I did off camera was I did disconnect the intake pipe, and the rest of it down there you can kind of see. The only thing I didn't disconnect is the blue hose. And then that red hose to the compressor, I did not disconnect that because it's a pain to get to. So once I get this a little bit loose, then I will disconnect that. I'm gonna try to film this one-handed, or I'll probably set the phone or the camera off to one side there to try to get a good angle of it, but it's probably still gonna be obscured a little bit. The other thing, so if you're familiar with these cars, there is this guy here, which is the top engine mount or a brace. It's a torque brace. You got to get this off. And this guy here is going to be in the way of pulling that out. So we're going to pull it out with the exhaust side out first. Try to give that a little bit of a shot there. It is going to be a bit of a trick. I did get the last two hoses disconnected on the front there. I'll show you once I get it out what two I'm talking about. One's the compressor, the other one's the one for the diverter valve. I'll show you exactly where they disconnect. Bear with me here while I struggle to get this out.
Everybody's gonna see it. Oh, all you need to know is that we're holding on. Even if we fall, we will rise up and we follow the path that we believe in. No, we're not gonna stop until we reach it. Oh, all you need to know is that we're holding on. We rise up from the dust and claim our throne. We rise up from the dust and claim our throne. We rise up from the dust and claim our throne.
So found a couple of things that is a little troublesome. I did notice, so looking at this here, I don't know if you can hear it, but there is, you can see it there. There is play in this. Makes me think one of the bearings took a crap right when I started doing that pull. So I don't know on what happened there. I do see a little bit of residue. It's like oil residue on the back part there. So I don't know if that is a result of maybe blowing a seal or something like that. Now, the other thing I was talking about earlier is here is one of the tubes I was talking about that came off. There is a vacuum hose that goes from the intake manifold into this guy. This is kind of hidden. It is a little hard to find. If you know it's there, you know what you're looking for. If you don't know it's there, you're never gonna see it. Same with this guy here. So that red vacuum hose I was talking about, that guy goes into right here. So this basically builds boost. This shoots that boost as a reference to your TC or your turbo control valve. And from there, that's how your vehicle or your computer knows how to manage boost from this input to this input, which this is your wastegate. So your wastegate is going to act as an actuator right here. So this guy is going to open, and basically it's going to put pressure into this guy over here, push this open, and open up that flap. Now, the other thing I did notice is when I installed this, I felt like this had it was a little bit easier to open. Now I don't feel like it's as easy to open. I can't do it with one arm. This guy has a pretty tight spring on there, so it feels like something might be binding up in here as well. I'm not 100%. I'm not an expert on turbos like the guys are that I sent it to. Again, I don't want to say anything bad about them. Honestly, I do think they did a really good job. There was a lot done to this as far as when I got it back. The only thing I am worried about is the problem doesn't get resolved. Then I don't know where to go from there. The last thing I want to do is pull this turbo out for a third time. All right, guys. So it's about a week later. I have no update about the turbo yet. So I've been waiting. I sent it out last Thursday, and it is the Friday after. So hopefully I'll hear back in the next couple of days, and then I can update you, kind of give you guys a little bit of idea of what was going on. And once it's back, goes in the car, obviously. Drive around, all fingers crossed. Hopefully nothing happens. As far as everything else, I do have a downpipe I need to put on. I gotta get emissions first. We'll put the downpipe on, and then maybe order a 3-inch cat pack exhaust. You know, if you guys have watched Gregson video or Gregson from Shifting Lanes, and you know, watch his videos, know exactly what this car sounds like. It sounds amazing, especially with the open exhaust. So those are some plans. Other things I would like to do is get some new wheels. I do have some bent wheels in the back. Hashtag snowboarding. As far as everything on this car, we're just at a standstill. I'll probably do a video on the bike in between until I get the turbo back. You know, let me know what you guys want to see. You know, comment below, subscribe. Let me know what you liked, what you didn't like, what you want to see more of, and you know, give me some feedback. I mean, this is my second video. I want to know where I need to go from here to make it better. But until next time, see you later, guys.